You grow up and you have, I had black friends growing up.
Last night, Republican primary candidate for president, Nikki Haley, was on CNN for a town hall event and showcased why she will not be the next president. So I got a couple of clips from this event. And for me, this is less about Nikki Haley, because I'll get to polling in a second here. Nikki Haley, unless something happens to Trump, something external happens to Trump, Nikki Haley's not going to be the next nominee. But for me, her response here, especially the second clip, really goes to a mindset that a lot of politicians take on and is just completely backwards. First, let me just show you some of that polling. So this is for Iowa. This is the upcoming first state in the Republican primary this month. So right now, there hasn't been new polling since late December, but Trump still sitting at 50% in Iowa, and far, far down in second place is Ron DeSantis at 18.4, and then Nikki Haley at 15.7. And you can see the names there. So it's hard to really think that, there's going to be anything dramatic happening in Iowa. Nationally, it looks even worse for Nikki Haley and the rest. Trump up at 61.8%, and it's Nikki Haley. No, it's DeSantis now at 12.1. Nikki Haley at 11.2. So Nikki Haley's catching up to Ron DeSantis. Could end up winning, the next several states after Iowa. But regardless, or not winning, I should say, coming ahead of Ron DeSantis, which for her would be a win. This appearance on CNN, let me just start with this response. So this is addressing her recent controversy that I covered before the Christmas break about how Nikki Haley was asked, or was it after the Christmas break? I don't even, it was sometime, I think, in the last 2 weeks. Nikki Haley at a town hall event talking to voters, she was asked, what was the cause of the Civil War? So I covered that video. She did not say slavery, which is clearly slavery was the reason for the Civil War. And she has since tried to apologize and run it back. Here is her response, again, to a question bringing this up.
So I want to ask you about something that's been a challenge for your campaign over the past week. And this, of course, is referring back to New Hampshire. You were asked to explain the cause of the Civil War. You obviously did not mention slavery. And afterwards, you came up, you said that was a mistake. In fact, you said it should have been the first thing that you said. So you did come out and say that. Chris Christie, though, came out and said that you gave that answer not because you're, in his words, dumb or racist, but because you're, quote, unwilling to offend anyone by telling the truth. What do you say to that?
No one's ever said that I am unwilling to offend. I offend plenty of people because I call people out when they do something wrong. What I will tell you is Chris Christie is from New Jersey. I should have said slavery right off the bat. But if you grow up in South Carolina, literally in second and third grade, you learn about slavery. You grow up and you have, I had black friends growing up. It is a very talked about thing. We have a big history in South Carolina when it comes to, slavery, when it comes to all the things that happened with the Civil War, all of that. I was thinking past slavery and talking about the lesson that we would learn going forward. I shouldn't have done that. I should have said slavery, but in my mind, that's a given that everybody associates the Civil War with slavery.
First, I gotta say, this is obvious bullshit. If you go back and watch the original clip, this is her direct quote. You can go watch the video again. I covered this last week. This is her direct quote from the original video when she was asked about Civil War. Quote, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could do, what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? At no point here is she discussing the lessons learned from the Civil War and how we moved forward and what lessons we took from it. This is all about what caused the Civil War at the time. So her claiming here that, I was forward thinking, I was looking ahead and what lessons we could take from the Civil War, that's not at all what she was doing when she answered the question. She purposely avoided discussing slavery because there's a contingent of Republican voters that would be offended if she brought it up. There is a long history. Like there's been other candidates like this. Corey Stewart, a Senate nominee, said he doesn't believe that the Civil War was fought over the issue of slavery, arguing again about states' rights. And this has been an issue in schools as well. This is from 2015. Texas officials, schools should teach that slavery was a side issue to the Civil War. So depending on the state you're in, the Civil War is taught differently. So as the Washington Post writes here, in their official standards for teaching social studies and history, some states explicitly call for teaching about aspects of slavery throughout a student's K-12 education, while others refer to it in passing or not at all. So this is, for Nikki Haley to pretend that, oh, this is all settled, of course, we all know. Yeah, people that understand history know this, but this is not settled because culturally it is not settled. There is still a debate over how this is taught, which is why it is incredibly important to mention what the actual cause of the Civil War was, which is slavery. Now, the larger issue here for me is not even this answer, and also, she also mentions, I had black friends growing up. Like that. That is the quote that a lot of that is kind of being discussed most today and being pulled out. I would say out of context. She was discussing that in the context of growing up. We discussed these issues. I don't think she was trying to use it as a crutch to say I had black friends. Though you could view it that way. I wouldn't put it past her to do that. But the bigger issue here for me is the following response. Check this out.
I knew half of South Carolinians saw the Confederate flag as heritage and tradition. The other half of South Carolinians saw it as slavery and hate. My job wasn't to judge either side. My job was to get them to see the best of themselves and go forward. And South Carolina led the way, but that is the way we have to work on issues that try and divide us, is don't go and pick who's right and who's wrong and who's good and who's bad. That's what leaders are doing now, and it's caused us to be completely in political disarray. A leader doesn't decide who's right. When you serve the people, you serve everybody.
You can only serve everybody if you have a basis to work from. If you can't even acknowledge that the Confederacy was about hate, racism, slavery, then you have nowhere to work from. Like she says there, that this is not just a Nikki Haley issue. This is a issue largely with politicians and this desire to play both sides. Like she's trying to claim here that she's being a leader by not taking a side. No, you're being a coward by not recognizing reality. She says one side saw the Confederacy or saw the Confederate, symbols like flags as hate and slavery. The other side saw it as heritage and tradition. Heritage and tradition for what? For the Confederacy, for slavery, for slave owners, for people that were traitors to America because they wanted to keep slaves. That's what their heritage and tradition was for. This really shows you that this is not someone to be viewed as a moderate. The media wants to call Nikki Haley a moderate. It's absolutely insane. No, the only moderate aspect of Nikki Haley is she is trying to shine up the racism that is at the heart of the Republican Party. There is no moderate here. This is someone bullshitting you. Trump don't get me wrong, the absolute worst. I'm not defending him here, but you know what he is. We know what he is. Nikki Haley is somebody who pretends to be something that she's not. She pretends to be a moderate when in reality, she has all the same positions that Donald Trump does. This idea that the only way to be a true leader is to lie to people, is to not take a side, is to not acknowledge factual reality. This is what is wrong with politicians.